if you do, how many of you have experience with a compass? Okay, so few people, but not a lot. All right. So let me tell you some characteristics of a good compass. One characteristic is that you have some lead on the pencil side. That's good. Another good characteristic is that the compass maintains its opening like firmly. So what I mean by that is it may be a little bit difficult to adjust it, but when I adjust it, it will stay in place pretty well. So these compasses are pretty good. I'll give you a heads up. If your pencil gets too short or you got to sharpen it, you can just unscrew it and slide it out. You can sharpen it and then place it back in. Also, if this gets too loose and it's wiggling all around all the time, you can take a screwdriver and gently tighten that, righty-tighty, righty-tighty just a little bit. You don't want to do too much because it might break this plastic, but you can tighten it up and then it'll stay put a little bit better. Okay, so here's the thing. I don't want to go through these steps that are written down. What I want to do is I just want to talk to you and we'll have a conversation about how to draw these. And then what I would like for you to do is when I'm passing back your quizzes today, you can just kind of read through and just kind of verify that it's the same information, just worded a little differently. Does that kind of make sense? I think it'll help you to learn better. Well, here's how you start out. We're going to learn 4 constructions. There's actually a lot more. There's a lot more, but we're just going to learn 4. And the first one is copying a segment. And to start out, oh, by the way, you'll need a straight edge, which probably will be your protractor. You'll need a straight edge, a pencil, and a compass. You'll need all of those. But you'll start out, when you copy a segment, you're just going to draw an exaggerated segment first. What I mean by exaggerated is you just want to make sure it's longer than the one you're copying. So draw a segment that's longer than the one you're copying. If you want, you can add in one endpoint. We'll add the other endpoint when we know where it's at, right? So, by the way, I believe the Greeks used these constructions, and I think in Euclid's book, he lists out all the different constructions you can do, I believe. But what you do is, to copy a segment, you're basically going to use your compass as a measuring device. You're going to put the pointy end on the one end point and the pencil end on point B. And then the trick to copying the segment is to maintain that opening and transfer it to your other segment. And draw a little arc to cut it off. And what I'll often do is, once I've drawn my arc, I'll go back and measure again and make sure it was the right measurement. Does that make sense? Just kind of make sure. And you have just copied a segment once you put a little endpoint there, and I'd erase the excess. Erase the excess. Now, in truth, people that existed before they had plastic and metal to make compasses, they still did these constructions to make buildings that looked neat and stuff, but they used like lengths of rope in order to make the arc marks. It's the same idea though. Okay, so our next construction, oh, and by the way, if your pointy end, if the metal sticker part is kind of like sliding around a lot, if you put a piece of paper underneath your paper, it'll stick a little bit better. The next construction we're gonna do is to bisect a segment. And what's funny is we're also going to necessarily make a perpendicular bisector. So a bisector just means it bisects the segment, but the line that we draw, the segment that we draw is gonna be perpendicular to AB, which is kind of interesting. So how you do this construction is you take your compass, put it on A, and go a little bit over halfway. It could be a lot over halfway, but it's just gonna make you do more work. So I just try to go a little bit over halfway, and then make a pretty decently big arc. And it helps, I think, if you kind of slant your compass a little bit to make your arc. Now what you're going to do is you're going to keep that measurement. And does anybody have some intuition as to what you're going to do next?
You're going to put it on the B side.
Yeah, Jackson. Yep, you're going to flip it over, keeping that opening, right? Put it at B, and then draw the arc on the other side. And you're about done. To draw your perpendicular bisector, you connect where the arcs intersected.
Oh.
Yes. And we might be a little bit off on these when I go back and measure them. And the reason we might be a little bit off is, aren't these endpoints super fat? In reality, those endpoints are super fat. So,
yeah.
Are we going at the middle of the endpoint? Are we going at the inside of the endpoint, the outside of the endpoint? That can kind of mess up things. But if you go and measure these, they should be equal. So I'll go like center of dot. Oh, look, that's at 2.5. Yeah, 2.5. It's like exact if I go center dot. So do you guys see how it bisected the segment? Any questions on those two constructions? Is everybody doing all right with their compass?
I do, but it's fine.
You good?
It's erasable, so it's fine.
Okay. Yep. Life's erasable. Most of the time.
I completely 100%.
Unless you like kill somebody.
That's not erasable.
That's not erasable. Don't even try. All right, ladies and gentlemen, next up, this is pretty cool. We can copy this angle like precisely. Now, think about this. If you ever look at like old, especially like Greek architecture, it looks perfect. It absolutely looks perfect. But they didn't have computer programs where they could line everything up perfectly. They used tools like we're doing now to make sure this angle here matched another angle somewhere else. It's pretty amazing. But anyway, to copy this angle, we're going to start out by drawing one of the sides of the angle. So, and a side of an angle is just a ray, right? So draw a ray with your straight edge. Then you go to the angle that you're copying, place the metal part at A, and draw yourself an arc that crosses both sides. Then maintain that opening and go over to your endpoint and try to replicate that arc. Replicate it as far as length. And again, I'm going to like double check and make sure that I didn't mess up my compass. what you're gonna do is from the intersection on one side, you're gonna now measure at that spot how far open the angle is. And what I want you to do is to draw a tiny little arc to show that you measured it. I think I need to go in a little bit. Sorry, the shadows are playing tricks on me. Okay, just draw a little arc, and all that does is show that I measured it. In truth, you don't have to make that little arc, but it shows that you measured it. And now you replicate using the same spacing. You replicate that intersection at the arc you drew earlier. And how do you suppose we finish this up?
Draw a line.
Draw a line. Now, some people visually, they get concerned because they'll look at mine and they'll say, wait a second, Mr. Eichen, your angle's a lot bigger. But the only reason it may appear bigger is because I made this ray longer, didn't I? But the opening of it, the angle measure of it, is going to be the same. .45 it appears to be. What do you guys think? You guys are pretty quiet today, but it's probably just because half the class is gone and
That's just Thursday.
I'm talking.
It's not half the class, it's just AJ is gone, so it seems so much
Oh,
quieter.
wow.
It's true though.
Wow. Wow. Well, do you want to do the last one?
Not really. Okay,
Oh, come on, Caitlin.
let's do it.
There we go. All right,
Ready to
good.
go.
So, on the last one, we're gonna bisect the angle. What does that look like when you bisect an angle?
When we're just gonna put a line in the
So there's a ray in the middle, and then the angle measures are equal, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what we need to do is somehow figure out the exact ray. I imagine it's gonna look something like this, right? I need to get the exact ray that will go down the middle there. And to do that, you're gonna start out by making an arc like we did on our previous example. You're gonna make an arc, and the center point's gonna be at A, and then you're gonna make an arc that touches both rays, or both sides. And I gotta tell you, these compasses are pretty awesome. I don't know if you've ever used any other compasses, but these are A-okay. You don't have to maintain that distance, okay? So you can, yeah, look, oh, I closed it.
Oh,
Yeah, no,
Oh,
you don't have to maintain that distance. What that does is that gets us some intersections to work from, but we don't have to maintain that distance. Now, open up your protractor, place it at one of the compass. So sorry. Open up your compass and draw an arc that you think passes through where the perpendicular bisector, or not the perpendicular, where the angle bisector would be. So just kind of right through there. I think I probably got that covered.
Does it not pass?
No, you don't have to hit this angle at all, or this arc at all. But you just want to make an arc that you think crosses where your ray will go.
Oh.
Yeah, that's all. And now here's the key to it though. You maintain that opening and flip it over, and go to your other intersection and cross it with the one that you just drew. Now I'm gonna double check and just make sure that I didn't mess it up. So there's my measurement. And there's my measurement. So I maintained it. And guess what?
Draw line.
You draw your ray from the endpoint of A passing through the intersection. And if you were to measure it, it should be equal. So the whole angle appears to be about 104 or so. I'd say it's about 104. And the half angle, yeah, it's at 52. That's awesome. I like it when a plan comes together. So anyway, you can't even see what I'm doing, can you? Yeah, I was measuring things. What do you guys think about constructions? Awesome. Okay, so what I'd like for you to do is read what Miss Curry had typed up, explaining how to do these, and just see if it makes sense. Is that kind of, you guys with me on that? Just read through, and I'm hoping that will really make these things stick in your brain. So go ahead and read through her descriptions about how to copy a segment, bisect a segment. Read through it, see if they make sense. And while you're doing that, I'll pass back your quizzes. Did everybody take the quiz yesterday? I think so.